In this video, I'm going to talk about my entire history as an Uber driver and as a Lyft driver. I thought it'd be fun to do this. A lot of people have asked me, how I got into ride sharing. Of course, I don't drive anymore. I've mentioned that in a lot of other videos, to be transparent. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to talk about this, given all these videos I do about Lyft and Uber and my kind of unique experience with Lyft and Uber. And I got to be honest, right in the beginning of this video, Uber and Lyft, in numerous different ways that I'll explain, has genuinely changed my life. And I'm not saying that lightheartedly. I'm not saying that as like an overstatement or as an exaggeration. So for me, going all the way back, let's bring it all the way back, roll back the clock to 2014. In 2014, I was touring the country as a DJ. It was my first ever countrywide tour. I was also working on my first ever album, The Light Nearby. I went to 10 major cities in the United States, made a song about each city that represented that city in musical form. And I remember I was in LA and I was talking to one of my friends and he's like, do you want me to get a ride there? And I'm like, the taxis are going to be expensive, whatever. And he goes, oh, no. He goes, we're going to take a Lyft. And at this time, I had not heard of Lyft or Uber. This is my first time ever hearing about it. And he said, look, this is the way it works. You have this app on your phone and you hit a button. The person comes and picks you up. They bring you to your destination. It's a lot cheaper than a taxi. It's a lot easier. It's a lot more reliable. You don't have to worry about being screwed over in terms of the price because, things are tracked on the app. And I'm like, dang, this is pretty cool. And I still remember actually the first ride I ever took in a Lyft. It was funny. It was me and three of my friends. So I was that person that got sat in shotgun right in the front. And I remember I was talking to the person and he had candy and I was like, oh, you have candy? He goes, yeah. He goes, as a Lyft driver, you try to provide a cool experience getting from point A to point B. So this is way back in the day. Almost every driver had candy and water, gum, snacks, all this kind of stuff. And me and him were talking about Ableton. Turns out he happened to be a music producer as well. We were talking about Ableton. I was telling him about what I was doing, all this kind of stuff. That was my first introduction ever to the concept of Lyft, right? Then fast forward all the way down now. I did the entire countrywide tour in 2014. At the end of 2014, I was getting back to Boston and I was talking to my cousin. And I'm like, I don't know exactly what to do when it comes to this Uber and Lyft thing because I've heard about it, but I'm kind of curious about it because he told me he was actually a driver. So I remember talking to him and just picking his brain about it, being like, how is the hours? How does it work? How much money do you make? This is, again, we're talking about 2014, where it's still such a new thing. Not even a lot of people have known about it. It still seemed, let's be honest, kind of sketchy. I saw this meme recently that says something like, when I grew up, I was told, don't talk to strangers and don't get into strangers' cars. And now it's you talk to strangers on Tinder or dating apps, and you get into strangers' cars when it comes to Uber and Lyft, right? And so I was just super interested in this whole Uber and Lyft concept the more I learned about it from him and being he's I make really good money on Friday and Saturday nights. It's a flexible schedule. For you doing this music thing, you can easily drive when you want, drive when you don't want. You don't have to tell them in advance when you're going to work. You just turn on the app and you just go. He goes, the barrier to entry is really easy. It's not like you have to get a degree or whatever. I've mentioned this before in other videos. It's pretty crazy if you think about it, that you can make, depending on where you are, decent money as a driver. And I've seen some drivers, and I'm not exaggerating this, in different areas, it depends. They make the same exact amount of money I'd make as an accountant, and I had to get a 4-year degree in accounting, do all this kind of stuff, right? So it is crazy that although there's a lot of pros and cons to Lyft and Uber, even now at the time of this video, you can still make really, really good money the same as an accountant would, right? Doing maybe bookkeeping or some other job, right? So I was very intrigued by this whole Lyft and Uber thing as I looked at it, this whole ride sharing thing. This is also too, which is funny. This is back in the day. I don't know if anyone remembers this, especially my OG drivers. Lyft's logo, I don't know why they got rid of it. I really liked it, was a pink mustache. So a lot of times when drivers were to come and pick you up, on the front of their car, they'd have this gigantic pink mustache, which I don't know why they got rid of that. That was such a cool concept. Maybe someone knows why. That was such a genius marketing thing because from a mile away, you'd see why is there a pink mustache? And I remember my cousin had this on his car. You'd be like, why is there a pink mustache on that car? And you'd be like, well, what's going on? Is this a promotion for something or whatever? I thought that was genius marketing. I don't know why Lyft got rid of that. I want to bring back the pink mustache. Maybe I'll do a video about that. But anyway, so I was super invested in this, and I was like, I'm going to sign up. I initially signed up for Lyft. I was told by a lot of people that Lyft was like the friendlier app. And this, I think, has changed a little bit, but Lyft is the friendlier app. Uber is the more like hardcore business app. I think there's still some truth to that, although I think now there's so many people driving for both. It's kind of the same, but I heard Lyft was the friendlier app, so I'm like, I'm going to do that. Now, here's what's interesting. Back in the day, again, this 2014/2015 now we're getting to, they actually interviewed you. It wasn't like what it is now. You sign up online and you just go. They actually interviewed you. So what happened is I signed up and they're like, okay, we're going to book your interview like you're doing a job interview. I remember I went to this guy's house. I picked him up and he gets in the car. He inspected my car, went around it, taking all these notes. He took a picture of me, right, for the app. He was kind of like I don't know what the term was, but it was he was like my Lyft coach, where if I had any issues, I could text him or email him or contact him to get advice. It was kind of like having a mentor, which is really interesting. They don't do that anymore. Maybe it's because I'm not sure why, but they don't do that anymore, of course. So we got in my car, we're driving. He goes, okay, I'm going to give you a destination. So he gave me a destination. He watched me put it in on the app, hit the start button, bring me there. We were talking. I then dropped him off, so to speak, at the destination where I basically just brought him to this destination, ended the ride, and then I still drove him home, which is kind of funny. But it was interesting that it was this whole interview process. And he goes, hey man, you did really well. You seem like a very talkative guy. You're a good driver. After me, he was studying the way I was driving. And he goes, you will hear your decision or be live soon, right? So this is now at the end of 2014. It took about a week, I think it was, to get approved. And I was like, did I fail my interview for Lyft? Right? It took a week to get approved or whatever it was. I can't remember the exact timeline, but it was not just a couple of days. Got approved. I'm like, okay. But this is around I say December-ish of 2014. So I was like, okay, I'm going to wait till the beginning of next year, beginning of 2015 to start driving. I got approved. I can drive whenever I want. So my first ever ride was in January of 2015. That's when I first did my first ride. And it didn't go so well. I remember being super nervous. I think for a lot of drivers out there, you probably know what I'm talking about, that doing your first ride is kind of nerve-wracking. You're like, a stranger's going to get in my car. What do I say? What do I do? And I'm a very talkative person, as most people can imagine. I'm a former bartender too, so I'm kind of used to I don't want to say cold calling per se, as more of just cold conversations where I don't know this person, but we're just going to talk, right? And I pulled up. I remember this girl wanted to get picked up outside of a Panera Bread in Boston. So I drove up, right? And this is way back in the infancy days too of Lyft and Uber. So I'm going to say that. I drove up and there was a girl waiting there kind of on her phone doing looking around. I'm like, all right, here we go. So I pull up and I'm like, hey, Lyft? And she goes, yeah, Lyft. I'm like, perfect. She gets in my car. I start driving. I start getting a bunch of calls and I'm like, it's probably a scam. She starts getting a bunch of calls and we're like, wait. And I'm like, what's your name? And I can't remember what her name was. And then I look on the app. Turns out, just my luck, 2 girls ordered a Lyft at the exact same time, at the exact same location. And I happened to pick up the wrong one, right? Of course, this is when I just started driving. So, side note as a pro tip, of course, make sure you're picking up the right person. But at the time, even looking back on that, the chance of that happening is pretty slim. Granted, if it was outside of a bar, it'd be different. We're okay, a bunch of people ordering at once. But this was 6 p.m. on a Tuesday, or I can't remember what day it was, on a Tuesday or something, outside of a Panera Bread. It wasn't this crazy hot spot for Lyft. So anyway, turns out we were able to work it out. I'm like, hey, what do you want to do? She goes, I have cash for me. I could just and I was going to give her the free ride anyway. I'm like, well, I technically messed up, great, first ride, right? And then she gave me cash. I dropped her off and I was like, okay, can't get worse than that, And then I remember doing a couple more rides. I remember my second ride, which obviously was not the best start either. A bunch of people got in the car and they're like, what is it? It was 4 older people. And they're like, what is it with this Lyft thing? We just heard about it. This is our first ride. I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of funny. You guys are my second ride ever. I just started driving today. They're like, oh, no way. Drove them. It was kind of interesting because I feel like most people kind of have this experience, especially because I first started driving, of what is this Lyft thing? And I was like, hey, I'm in this with you, right? Ended up dropping them off. They left a bunch of food in the car, which was really annoying because I didn't realize it. Again, these are things I learned very fast. Then I picked up the third person, and the third person was like, oh, did you have pizza? And I'm like, what? No. And I look back, the people left an entire gigantic pizza box, my second ever ride, in the car, and I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm like 0 out of 3. First ride, picked up the wrong person. Second ride, these people left a bunch of trash in the car, and I didn't notice it because I didn't, I just started driving. I didn't think that was a thing that people would do. I thought people would be courteous. And then 0 for 3, because this third person's now like, oh, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I just started driving. They left pizza in here earlier, I'm really sorry. And the person was cool about it, right? So anyway, drove then in 2015. Then, I was doing rides, all this kind of stuff. I then signed up for Uber, might as well say that too. And I say this as a side note, make sure you sign up with both apps. I've mentioned this in a lot of other videos in terms of pro tip videos to make more money, because the apps will give you different bonuses. Some nights Uber is just hitting, some nights Lyft's just hitting. Now in 2015, when I started driving for Uber, they were paying significantly more. So I was driving for Uber and I pretty much stopped driving for Lyft. I check it every once in a while, but I just didn't drive for Lyft. And then it went back to Uber. Because the big thing was very interesting, this is back in 2015, and a lot of this has changed, right? And I was thinking about this. I might go back and do videos about my old income statements to show you the money I used to make. Because, of course, I was making good money back in the day, especially for back in the day. Now, I feel like if anything, drivers make way less. I've done videos about this. It's just not as worth it. But back in the day, Lyft would have minimum hourly guarantees. And it was very interesting. It was from 7 to 9 a.m., 5 to 7 p.m., and I think like 10 p.m. on a Friday night, and Saturday night till like 2 a.m. So they had specific pockets that were minimum hourly guarantees, and all you had to do was at least one ride in that hour, be live for 50 minutes out of that hour, I think it was 50 minutes, and have a 90% acceptance rate. So what I typically do is do Lyft minimum hourly guarantees because it was hitting, and then maybe the other times do Uber or something like that. Then I switched to Uber because Lyft stopped doing that. I think they missed out on a lot of money because they would sometimes do like, and I'm not making this up, like $40 or $50 minimum hourly guarantees. And you're like, whoa, $40 an hour guaranteed? Even if I do one ride, then maybe $4, Lyft would compensate you all the way back up. So I'm like, this is pretty awesome, right? Again, this is like the infancy days of ride sharing and everything. I mean, it was a lot better, I'm going to be honest, the way it used to be. And I'd say on average, it was tough to say. I'd say on average, I made about $25 an hour in Boston. On Friday and Saturday nights, maybe about $30-ish an hour. But when it would snow or when the T would break down, the T being the public transportation, I mean, I could make sometimes upwards of like close to 50 or 60 an hour. It was pretty insane, right? And I say that for any kind of snowy climate or any climate that's not the best to go out in, which I know it sounds kind of weird to say, it crushed, right? So I was doing this in 2015 and still working on music, still doing all these kind of entrepreneurial pursuits I'm doing now, like YouTube music and everything. Then in 2016, this is like a big like game-changing year for me. In 2016, I was like, okay, you know what? I am going to move to LA. Now, a big part of this, which may shock a lot of people if my friends or families watching this video, is from 2015 to 2016, I lived out of my Prius in Boston. I was super broke. After doing that tour, kind of wiped away my funds. I thought music would take off a lot faster after doing this tour. It did not. So I literally lived out of my Toyota Prius for an entire Boston winter. The worst. I've done van life. I've lived out of my car before. I've lived out of my van. I've done it all. Doing it in a Boston winter in a sedan, I cannot tell you how horrible it was when it comes to the cold. In addition, I learned very quickly of how to roll your windows down because if I was breathing, the condensation would actually fog up the windows. And one, it would look sketchy from an outside perspective, but two, I actually got mold in my car as a result of that, right? So it was not the end. What I did is I had everything in my trunk covered over with a blanket. And this is my technique. I'd literally wake up, I do the morning commutes of 7 to 9 a.m. And if someone was going to the airport, luckily nothing bad ever happened. If someone was going to the airport, I'd already have this pre-planned, this kind of acting pitch where I'd be like, oh, airport, and they're like, yeah. And I'm like, all right. And I'd open up my trunk, and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm sorry. And I would just kind of do this as a thing. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm a DJ. I forgot I left a bunch of equipment in here. Is there any way you could put it in the back seat? I forgot to do this. And they're like, oh yeah, no problem. Luckily, maybe the universe or whatever was helping me out. Luckily, I never once had anybody, I never once had a group of people have luggage with them and be like, oh shoot, now they can't fit in the car. Luckily, it never worked out, but that was kind of my play. I was like, okay, if someone's going to the airport or if I'm picking somebody up from the airport, I just pretend that I've actually left my DJ equipment, which is partly true because I had my DJ equipment actually in the trunk. My bags and left it in the trunk. Which, funny story, this never happened, but I wish it did. I was also DJing gigs, right? I was still DJing gigs and everything. And I would sometimes Uber and Lyft. I would do Uber and Lyft after my DJ gigs. And it was always funny. I always wanted, at least one time, it never happened, for me to pick somebody up. And they're like, wait, when you just the DJ that was performing inside that club? And I'm like, yeah. Never happened, but that'd be kind of funny if it did. But anyway, so I was doing Uber and Lyft while living out of my car from 2015 to 2016. I realized, of course, that's not sustainable whatsoever, right? And I was like, okay, I'm trying to think of what to do. Should I like try to move in somewhere, but I'm super broke, you know? And I was like, you know what? I think for DJing and electronic music and everything that I'm really pursuing, LA is the place to be. As you can imagine, the entertainment capital of the world, arguably, I guess that, New York. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to move to LA, or at least let me test out the waters first. So I drove from Boston to LA. In case you don't know, I've actually been coast to coast 9 times. Maybe sometime I'll drive back like from here to LA to Boston just to do it like full on 10th double digit time. But I'm coast to coast 9 times. So I drove to LA in 2016 and I didn't drive in LA, right? Because obviously I went to LA to kind of test out the waters. I was here for a period of time. And at this point, things on YouTube start to really take off for me. Take off for me. And I was like, wow, I'm actually starting to make like good money on YouTube. Like it's now paying my bills. And I was putting in a lot of work on YouTube throughout 2016. And then at some point I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go back to Boston because things are now starting to pick up on YouTube, but I just want to go back, see my friends and family again and figure out, do I actually want to like fully move to LA? Like on paper, do the full transition, not just go to LA for a little bit to kind of feel it out, but fully move there. So in 2016, I went back to Boston, was driving for Lyft and Uber again in Boston, 2016, near the end of it. And then something really interesting happened that I did one video on YouTube called 10 Things I Wish I Knew About Lyft and Uber Before Driving. This video, I believe, don't quote me, but I believe was the first video on YouTube about Lyft and Uber to crack over 1 million views. It exploded almost out of nowhere. And I literally made the video with my phone. In case you didn't know, I film all my videos with my iPhone, including this one. It was really just me just talking. I didn't even have like a good mic. Like this is the Shure MV7 microphone, great microphone. Didn't even have a mic. I was just talking in my car while driving, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna talk about the 10 things I wish I knew before driving. Number 1 is this, right? So I just kind of rambled on. That video blew up. It skyrocketed. And because of that big video just kind of blowing up out of nowhere, I was like, oh, maybe I should do another video about Lyft and Uber. People seem to like this one. Because back in the day, I found, way back in the day, most of the videos about Lyft and Uber, 1, weren't the most correct. 2, might just be boring, hate to say it, or 3, and this is a big one, weren't really good videos. Like there'd be some good pieces of information, but they'd just be like, hey guys, sign up with my referral link. And they'd say that over and over and over again, where you're like, I can't even enjoy the video. They've told me 10 times in the past 2 minutes to click their referral link because they wanted the referral bonus, right? So I was like, let me do another video. So I started to do a series of how to make money on Lyft with Lyft and Uber, some pro tips, kind of like what I'm doing now on this channel. I was doing all these videos, and then this is when, because of all the revenue of these videos blowing up, I was like, I can actually like live off this. Like, what if I go all in? So in 2016 to 2017 came back to LA, and I'm like, okay, I'm coming back to LA with a vengeance. YouTube is now doing pretty well. It allows me to be remote. I love doing YouTube videos. I'm now going to go all in on YouTube. So I kind of dropped everything I was doing. I had other side gigs I was doing here and there, other side jobs, just to make money. Went all in on YouTube. So from 2017, 18, and 19, did not drive for Lyft and Uber. That was actually, in case you're curious, the last Uber and Lyft ride I ever did was I don't know if it was in the end of 2016 or beginning of 2017, but it was around that time. That was the last ride I ever did. So 2017, 2018, 2019, YouTube all in, didn't even touch Lyft and Uber, didn't even think about it, right? But I slowly stopped doing videos about Lyft and Uber, right? I wasn't driving anymore. Those videos, though, was still crushing it. I was still getting an absurd amount of views. Maybe, and you may be curious, this video does not exist anymore, which I'm going to get to. But that video was still bringing in so many people being like, hey, Mark, when are you going to do another Lyft and Uber YouTube video? And I'm like, well, I now focus more on vlogs, fitness style content, events, parties. I don't really do Lyft and Uber content, but I still got messages all the time when people ask me to do these videos. Then 2020 came. 2020 hit, as we all know, pandemic and everything. And at this point, I had one channel on YouTube, and this kind of now, again, it relates to the Lyft and Uber. It's a little bit different, but kind of similar. Is in 2020 when the pandemic hit, I was like, okay, I have one channel, and it's about Lyft and Uber. It's also about accounting. It's also about fitness. It's also about parties and events. It's also about book reviews. It's also about gaming stuff, right? It was so all over the place, and I don't mind being a variety channel, but it was almost too much variety. Like this channel now, which I'm going to talk about the history of this channel too, as it relates, is now about like making money, right? And there's different ways to do that. But this channel, my main channel was too random. And I was like, okay, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. It took me like a good 2 or 3 years to do this. I'm not exaggerating. I'm going to take my channel, create a bunch of other channels on YouTube, manually delete and re-upload all these videos, do all the SEO again, maybe re-edit them again, get monetized on all these other channels again. In case you don't know, to become a YouTube partner or to make money on YouTube, you need at least 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 public watch hours in the last 12 months. So I literally manually recreated all these channels based off different niches. Now I've kind of shrunk it down to 4 channels. I just have 4 now. But there were times I remember from 2020 to like 2022, I sometimes had 7 channels, and then I would delete a couple and like reinvent a couple. Like it was a whole process. I mean, a whole process. And I still got messages, people saying, hey, Mark, when are you going to do more Lyft and Uber videos? I do kind of regret this. I'm not going to lie, looking back on it, but I deleted that video. The 10 things I wish I knew about Lyft and Uber before driving for them. The video is gone forever. You cannot find it. I deleted it because I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make a channel just about Lyft and Uber because I get still messages, people saying, hey, Mark, we know you don't drive anymore, but it would be nice for you to do more videos because we love your perspective. I really like how you say things in a very transparent way. You don't kind of shove a referral code down our throats like every other YouTuber. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a channel. And I started a channel, this one, called the Uber and Lyft Drive Book. Started doing videos, right? Then this channel kind of transformed then into the Drive Book, then into Vachera Ride Share, and now bring it now kind of full steam all the way to this point. Now this channel is called Buck Living because I realized, okay, well, one, like I say in every video or a lot of videos, I don't drive anymore, right? And on one end, you may have noticed I do a lot of videos about Lyft and Uber, but also since I don't drive anymore, I'm like, okay, I kind of want to start doing more videos about how to make money, not just with Lyft and Uber, but in general, right? Because a lot of drivers have said to me like, hey, Mark, I don't really, like driving anymore. I'm not making that much money. You seem very knowledgeable with finance and accounting. Do you have any suggestions of ways to make more money, but not with Lyft and Uber, right? Which is why this channel is like that. Because it is interesting too, I will say as a side note, I have heard, and I'm going to be careful how I say this, I have heard through the grapevine, there have been other Lyft and Uber YouTubers who don't drive anymore, like myself, but they don't say it. Like they kind of pretend like they still drive, just to kind of make more content and stuff like that. And that's why you may notice on this channel, I've never once in the past couple of years done a video like, here's how much money I made last week, because I don't drive. Why would I make that up? Granted, I think it would be kind of cool to do a video about like how much money I made with Lyft and Uber back in the day, so you can see what it was like and how much, in my opinion, it was a lot better than it is now. But that's the entire history of me starting with Uber and Lyft, kind of getting involved with YouTube, which had a big portion for me. Like YouTube and Lyft and Uber had a big kind of connection because one, back in the day, Lyft and Uber allowed me to make more music, make videos and stuff like that. But then two, the video that really blew me up on YouTube that allowed me to kind of understand things about SEO and all the technical aspects of YouTube and the YouTube algorithm and videography was that video, 10 Things I Wish I Knew Before Lyft and Uber. It was also my first ever video to crack over 1 million views, which again, some part of me does kind of regret deleting it because it was such like a milestone for any YouTuber to have a video crack over 1 million views, especially your first one. But my mindset was like, well, my main channel, which still exists now, right, is all vlogs. And I'm like, I feel like that it's misleading if I have a video still up there talking about Lyft and Uber when I don't really do any more Lyft and Uber content. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to delete that video. It's gone forever. I should have backed it up or maybe kept it in like the archive. But that's why I was like, okay, I'm going to start a channel just about Lyft and Uber to give my perspective, to give pro tips, to talk about the requirements, the legal stuff, all the stuff I do on this channel. It's been a wild ride, I guess, pun intended.